As an old man now, sitting comfortably in my worn armchair that creaks just a tad when I settle into it, my mind often wanders back to those tense days of 1940, the Battle of Britain. That was a time when the mettle of our nation was truly tested. I was a young man then, full of vigor and a patriotic zeal that perhaps only the naive could possess in such abundance. We had just witnessed the fall of France and the heart-pounding evacuation of Dunkirk. The world seemed to be on a knife edge, and there I was, a fresh recruit in the Royal Air Force, about to be thrust into a maelstrom. Prime Minister Winston Churchill, with his indomitable spirit, had just declared in the House of Commons on the 18th of June, "The Battle of France is over. I expect that the Battle of Britain is about to begin." His words weren't merely to prepare us. They were a clarion call to brace for what was to come. Churchill also penned a directive that day for the creation of storm troops, which marked the early conception of what would become our esteemed commando units. These developments were our leader's strategic response to the imminent threat, an invasion that seemed as certain as the dawn. Welcome back to Harold's channel, everyone. Before we begin today's story, don't forget to hit like to support us and subscribe to the channel to catch our latest stories. In the lead-up to the battle, our situation was dire. The Luftwaffe, Germany's formidable air force, outnumbered us nearly 2-to-1. They had about 1,300 aircraft to our 600. We were underdogs, to say the least. But Britain had some aces up her sleeve. We had developed a chain of radar stations along the coast, the so-called chain home network, which could detect incoming German squadrons, giving us precious minutes to scramble our fighters. This was a marvel of the time, and it provided us with a significant tactical advantage. Our aircraft, the Supermarine Spitfire and the Hawker Hurricane, were among the finest in the world. The Spitfire, in particular, was a beautiful machine, sleek and deadly, able to turn tighter than the German Me-109S. This agility was crucial in dogfights, allowing us to outmaneuver and often outfight the enemy, even when the odds were stacked against us. The battle began in earnest in July 1940. Initially, the Luftwaffe targeted our shipping convoys and ports, trying to choke us economically. But by August, their focus shifted to destroying the RAF itself. They aimed to knock us out of the sky, bombing our airfields and radar stations in a relentless campaign. But they underestimated our resolve and our capability to quickly repair and return to operational status. I remember those days with a clarity that belies the years. I was stationed at an airfield in southeastern England, and the sorties were relentless. We flew sometimes 3-4 times a day, scrambling to meet wave after wave of German bombers escorted by fighters. The sky was littered with contrails, the air punctuated by the stuttering of machine guns and the explosive bursts of anti-aircraft fire. Life at the airfield was a mixture of routine and high tension. We pilots were a close-knit group, bound by the shared experience of combat and the ever-present threat of death. We lived in a state of perpetual readiness, always prepared to scramble at a moment's notice. The mess hall was a place of camaraderie, and at times, gallows humor. We joked about our chances, about the odds, and about the endless waves of German planes. It was a way to cope, to keep the fear at bay. The mechanics worked tirelessly to keep our planes in the air. They were the unsung heroes, the ones who patched up bullet holes, replaced damaged parts, and ensured that our Spitfires and Hurricanes were always ready for the next sortie. Their dedication was unwavering, and we knew that without them, we wouldn't stand a chance. By September, the Germans began what would be known as the Blitz, bombing London and other major cities. This was psychological warfare meant to break the British spirit. Each night, the sirens would wail, and the sky would light up with the fires of incendiaries. But Britain stood firm. Underground stations became shelters, and the people adapted to a life punctuated by nightly bombings. Churchill's speeches during this time were nothing short of inspirational. I recall listening to his broadcasts over the crackle of a radio, his words bolstering our spirits, reminding us of what we were fighting for: freedom, against a tyranny that sought to engulf our world. The tactics we employed were simple but effective. We relied on the radar stations to give us early warning of incoming raids. The controllers at Fighter Command would then vector us towards the enemy. Our objective was to intercept the bombers before they could reach their targets. The Hurricanes would typically go after the bombers, while the Spitfires would engage the escorting fighters. It was a dangerous dance, a high-stakes game of cat and mouse played out at high speed and high altitude. The dogfights were chaotic and deadly. There was no room for error. A moment's hesitation, a lapse in concentration, and it could be all over. The sky was a maelstrom of twisting, turning aircraft, tracer fire, and exploding shells. We fought with everything we had, pushing our planes to their limits and beyond. One cannot overstate the role that technology played in our victory. The radar system, known as Chain Home, was a game changer. It allowed us to detect incoming raids and respond in a coordinated manner. The information gathered by the radar stations was relayed to Fighter Command, where it was used to direct our fighters to intercept the enemy. This early warning system gave us a crucial advantage and allowed us to make the most efficient use of our limited resources. The Spitfire and Hurricane were also technological marvels. The Spitfire's agility and speed made it a formidable opponent in dogfights, while the Hurricane's durability and firepower made it ideal for taking on bombers. Together, these aircraft formed the backbone of our defense and were instrumental in our success. The battle was not without its personal sacrifices. Many of my comrades did not make it through. The loss of friends and fellow pilots was a constant reminder of the cost of war. Each sortie carried the risk of being the last, and the sight of empty bunks in the barracks was a sobering reality. We mourned our losses, but we also found strength in each other. The bonds forged in the heat of battle were unbreakable, and we supported one another through the darkest times. The camaraderie among us was a source of solace and motivation. We fought not just for our country, but for each other, for the men who had become like brothers. As the battle wore on, it became clear that the Luftwaffe was struggling. Their losses were mounting, and their tactics were becoming increasingly desperate. The turning point came in September 1940, when they shifted their focus to bombing London. This decision, driven by Hitler's desire to break the morale of the British people, proved to be a critical mistake. It gave Fighter Command the breathing space it needed to repair airfields and rebuild strength. The Blitz was a dark time, but it also brought out the best in the British people. Night after night, the bombs fell, but the spirit of the nation remained unbroken. People adapted to the constant threat, seeking shelter in underground stations and other safe places. The government's efforts to maintain morale were tireless, and Churchill's speeches continued to inspire and reassure. Ultimately, the Luftwaffe failed to gain the air superiority needed to launch a successful invasion. The Battle of Britain, which lasted until the end of October 1940, marked the first significant defeat of Hitler's war machine and a turning point in the Second World War. It preserved Britain as a base from which the Allies could eventually launch the liberation of Western Europe. Now, as I reflect on those days, I think of the young men and women who stood resolute against a seemingly invincible foe. Our aircraft, our radar, our unified national effort, all these were crucial. But it was the spirit of the British people, their refusal to give in, that truly made it our finest hour. In those early days, before the battle truly began, the country was a flurry of activity and mobilization. The call for aluminum was a vivid memory for many of us. We needed the metal to build our Spitfires and Hurricanes, the aircraft that would be our salvation in the skies. The Ministry of Aircraft Production put out an appeal to the public, asking them to donate anything made of aluminum. Pots, pans, garden furniture, everything was collected and melted down to create the sleek, deadly machines that would take to the air. I remember the collection drives in the villages and towns. People brought whatever they could spare, and sometimes even things they couldn't. It was a collective effort, a show of unity that bolstered our spirits. It was as if the entire nation was preparing for this great confrontation, each person playing their part, no matter how small. One cannot overstate the role that technology played in our victory. The radar system, known as Chain Home, was a game changer. It allowed us to detect incoming raids and respond in a coordinated manner. The information gathered by the radar stations was relayed to Fighter Command, where it was used to direct our fighters to intercept the enemy. This early warning system gave us a crucial advantage and allowed us to make the most efficient use of our limited resources. The Spitfire and Hurricane were also technological marvels. The Spitfire's agility and speed made it a formidable opponent in dogfights, while the Hurricane's durability and firepower made it ideal for taking on bombers. Together, these aircraft formed the backbone of our defense and were instrumental in our success. The battle was not without its personal sacrifices. Many of my comrades did not make it through. The loss of friends and fellow pilots was a constant reminder of the cost of war. Each sortie carried the risk of being the last, and the sight of empty bunks in the barracks was a sobering reality. We mourned our losses, but we also found strength in each other. The bonds forged in the heat of battle were unbreakable, and we supported one another through the darkest times. The camaraderie among us was a source of solace and motivation. We fought not just for our country, but for each other, for the men who had become like brothers. After the Battle of Britain, many of us continued to serve in various capacities. Some went on to fly in other theaters of war, while others took on training roles, passing on their knowledge and experience to new recruits. The war was far from over, and there were still many challenges ahead. I was reassigned to a training unit, where I spent the next few years teaching young pilots the skills they would need to survive in combat. It was a different kind of duty, but no less important. The young men who came through our training program were eager and determined, and I did my best to prepare them for the harsh realities of war. One of the most significant operations that followed the Battle of Britain was the D-Day invasion in June 1944. The success of this operation was made possible, in part, by our victory in the skies 4 years earlier. The RAF played a crucial role in providing air cover and support for the Allied forces as they stormed the beaches of Normandy. I remember listening to the news of the invasion with a mixture of pride and anxiety. It was a monumental effort, and the stakes were incredibly high. The bravery and determination of the soldiers who took part in that operation were truly inspiring. They faced immense challenges, but their courage and resilience ultimately led to the liberation of Western Europe. In the years following the war, Britain underwent a period of reconstruction and renewal. The scars of the conflict were still visible, but there was also a sense of hope and optimism. The nation had endured one of the darkest periods in its history, and now it was time to rebuild and move forward. The war had brought about significant social and political changes. The government implemented reforms to improve healthcare, education, and social services. The National Health Service was established, providing free healthcare for all citizens. These changes were a testament to the resilience and determination of the British people to create a better future. As I look back on those years, I am filled with a sense of gratitude for the experiences and lessons learned. The Battle of Britain was a defining moment in my life, and it shaped who I am today. It taught me the importance of courage, determination, and unity in the face of adversity. The friendships forged during those days have endured over the years. Many of my comrades and I stayed in touch, sharing our memories and experiences. We attended reunions and commemorative events, honoring the sacrifices made and celebrating our shared history. The legacy of the Battle of Britain extends beyond the war itself. It is a story of resilience, innovation, and unity that continues to inspire future generations. The lessons learned during that time are still relevant today, reminding us of the importance of preparedness, technological advancement, and the strength of the human spirit. Each year, on the anniversary of the battle, we remember those who fought and those who gave their lives. We honor their memory and reflect on the significance of their sacrifices. The Battle of Britain will always be remembered as a pivotal moment in history, a testament to the courage and determination of the British people. As I sit here sharing my story, I am reminded of the importance of passing down these lessons to future generations. It is our duty to ensure that the memory of those who fought and the lessons learned are not forgotten. We must teach our children and grandchildren about the sacrifices made and the importance of standing up for what is right. The Battle of Britain was not just a military victory, it was a triumph of the human spirit. It showed that even in the face of overwhelming odds, we can prevail through courage, determination, and unity. It is a story that must be remembered and cherished, a beacon of hope for future generations. As I reach the end of my tale, I am filled with a sense of peace. The Battle of Britain was a defining chapter in my life, and it shaped the person I have become. The experiences and lessons learned during that time have stayed with me, guiding me through the years. I am grateful for the opportunity to share my story, and I hope that it serves as a reminder of the importance of courage, determination, and unity. The Battle of Britain was our finest hour, and it is a story that will continue to inspire and resonate for generations to come. Years have passed since those harrowing days of the Battle of Britain. The world has changed in ways we could scarcely have imagined back then. Technology has advanced, societies have evolved, and new challenges have emerged. But the lessons learned during the Battle of Britain remain as relevant as ever. As a veteran, I have seen the world move on from the devastation of war. I have witnessed the rebuilding of nations, the forging of new alliances, and the pursuit of peace. The sacrifices made by my comrades and I were not in vain. They paved the way for a brighter future, one built on the foundations of courage, resilience, and unity. In my twilight years, I have dedicated myself to ensuring that the legacy of the Battle of Britain is preserved and honored. I have spoken at schools, community centers, and veterans organizations, sharing my experiences and the lessons learned. It is my hope that by doing so, I can inspire future generations to appreciate the value of peace and the importance of standing up against tyranny. The Battle of Britain was more than just a military campaign. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. It showed that even in the darkest of times, we can find the light of hope and the will to persevere. It is a story that must be told and retold, a reminder of what we are capable of when we come together for a common cause. As I look back on my life, I am filled with a sense of fulfillment and gratitude. I am proud of what we achieved and the legacy we have left behind. The Battle of Britain will always hold a special place in my heart, and I will continue to honor the memory of those who fought and those who gave their lives. It is not just about the battles we fought or the victories we achieved. It is about the values we upheld and the lessons we learned. The Battle of Britain was our finest hour, and it will continue to inspire and guide us for generations to come. Thank you for listening to the entire story. Please leave your feedback below. It motivates Harold's channel to keep growing.